Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to this special edition of the joint broadcast by the Mefo Info platform, Cameroon News Agency platform, and the Beyond Africa podcast. We are reviewing updates in Cameroon regarding the elections. And of course, lots have happened since the election day on October 12th. With the declaration of the results yesterday, October 26th, there have been massive demonstrations and police reactions. Some international organizations and foreign diplomatic missions have started issuing statements. We are going to look at those statements, look at the reactions on the field, what is happening, whether human rights are affected, and if human rights are affected, what could be the recourse for those whose human rights have been affected, what the diplomatic community could do, and what Issa Chiruma Bakari, who knows that he won the elections per the results that he published, has up his sleeves at this moment. But one thing is certain, Cameroon's Minister of Territorial Administration, Mr. Paul Biya, was out today threatening everybody. The media, podcasters, Issa Chiruma Bakari, demonstrators, and everyone who dares to have a contrary opinion to what he thinks. Is that what the world should be? Is that how Cameroon is going to be governed over the next 7 years? Even assuming that there were no electoral contestations, the signs are not bright. The signs are bleak for the future. If Paul Biya believes that his candidate won the elections squarely and fairly, would he need to go into such threats to ensure that his candidate can rule Cameroon? These and all others are what we are going to review today. Before we introduce our guest to you, let me introduce you to our one and only Mimi Mefo.
Thank you so much, Bernard, and to all our viewers across Cameroon and across the globe. It's our pleasure having you once again with us tonight. Bernard already planté le décor, as we say it in French. And it's amazing to have each and every one of you again tonight with us. As he said, we are already having reactions as well from the international scene. International organizations like the European Union, Human Rights Watch, and Amnesty International have been reacting. In a statement today, the EU said that it is deploring the death by firearms of civilians and calling for transparency, accountability, and justice. Words that many Cameroonians have been waiting for several weeks now. We remember in our previous discussions, we've consistently questioned the place and the role of the international community when it comes to the situation in Cameroon. Now, the European Union has urged the government to release all those who are unjustly detained within the context of the October 12th presidential election in Cameroon. And the EU also reminded Yaoundé of its obligations under the Samoa Agreement that Cameroon is signatory to, which binds nations to principles of democracy and human rights. But the EU is not the only institution, organization that is reacting. Like I said, we have the Human Rights Watch. We also have Amnesty International. Amnesty International is demanding that Cameroonian authorities should respect, protect, and facilitate the rights to peaceful assembly, peaceful demonstration, while calling for a prompt, independent, and impartial investigation into the deaths. And while the Amnesty International organization is reacting and calling for independent investigations, we are seeing that more people are dying. So far, the death toll has risen to 10 across the national territory, according to reports that we are having from the different regions of the country, as far as the post-election protests in Cameroon is concerned. Now, Human Rights Watch, on its part, ahead of the final proclamation, warned that whatever the outcome is, there should be the respect of the rule of law and democratic will of the people, and said that the democratic will of the people is very essential. Now, these statements are coming after the Constitutional Council declared 92-year-old President Paul Biya winner of an election that has been termed controversial, the will of the people stolen and the victory of the people stolen, extending his term or his rule to extending his 43-year rule. It means that by the time President Paul Biya's mandate ends, this is his 8th term in office. By the time this mandate ends, he is going to be 99, and he must have ruled the country for about 50 years. Now, this announcement has triggered
Did we lose Mimi?
Nationwide protests. Yes,
I think Mimi
Bernard
was saying that by the time Paul Biya mandate ends, this current mandate ends, Paul Biya will be about 100 years old, because
yes,
he is
100
92 now and getting to
old.
93.
Yes, that's right. Yes, thank you, Bernard. Now,
So to discuss these issues today, I would like to discuss these issues today. We have with us Barrister Felix Nkongo Agbobala, who is one of the leading human rights advocates in Cameroon. He's been following the trends of the politics in recent years, and he's been a leading voice when it concerns.
Okay, so yes, I think Bernard was saying that Felix Nkongo Agbo has been a leading voice when it comes to human rights violation politics in the country, the Anglophone crisis as well. We've seen him standing out when it comes to this election that was taking place in Cameroon. We also saw him on the side of the presidential candidate Issa Shoma Bakari, who has declared himself winner of the election. Barrister, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Good evening, Mimi. Good evening, Ngalim. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure and honor to be your guest, because you're one of the finest, and we've come a long way back. You're an icon in terms of investigating journalism, in terms of using the media to address issues that don't touch and concern the people, kind of people-centric journalists. So it's always, a joy and feeling of excitement and elation in me when I am part of your team for an interview.
Thank you so much, Barrister, for those compliments. Welcome again. We've seen a lot of people have died since President Paul Biya was declared winner, and even before that, some people were already killed in the city of Douala and also in Garoua. What is your reaction when you see these things happening, Barrister?
A reaction of very sadness, very disappointed. One dead too many. In 2025, we are not supposed to be wasting the lives, especially of young men and women, over something that we are supposed to have a solution, over an election where people are not supposed to be killed. This is not the whole definition of democracy, where elections are the will of the people, reflect the wishes and aspirations of the common man and woman. It's unfortunate that with the way we toy with human life in this country, the way we show disregard and disdain to human beings, and the worthlessness in the lives of Cameroonians, it is very unfortunate. So I feel sad. I feel saddened by the loss of lives, destruction of property, and the time that we are wasting, whereas we're supposed to be building a nation, not only for today, but for future Cameroonians.
We saw you with Issa Shoma Bakari prior to the election, and you actually endorsed him as you saw him as the candidate for the people and a candidate that can bring the change that Cameroon needs. But on Monday, yesterday, the Constitutional Council declared something different from what many Cameroonians expected, including certainly yourself and Issa Shoma Bakari. How do you feel that he is not the winner of the October 12th election?
Well, Mimi, let me just take you a little bit back. Well, yes, I endorsed Issa Chiruma. It was a process. I'd met Issa Chiruma twice before endorsing him. I met him twice. Then I traveled. I sent him a letter in which I articulated, it was more of a private letter, certain things that if he assures me that he could do it for my people in this sense is the people of the Southwest and Northwest region, if he could do these things to them, I would endorse him and I would join him on the campaign trail. And I informed him that I'd never endorsed anybody. And I made sure, and I said clearly in my letter to him, that this is not about my personal gain. It's about the people that I feel that I represent, that I speak on behalf of them. That's what I assured him.
So it seems the network is failing everyone today. That is our guest, Felix Nkongo Akbo. They're joining us from Cameroon, certainly. He will try to sort out his network and join us again.
Can you hear me?
Hopefully it's working this time. Yes, Barrister.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can
So
hear you and you're on. Yeah.
To me, he was the people's choice. He was the candidate of the coalition. And when I talk about a coalition, I'm not talking necessarily about a coalition of political parties. In an interview that I'd given somewhere, I'd said that when the political leaders, if they fail to come together, the people and the civil society should come together and decide and determine their candidate. And that is what happened. So he was a coalition candidate of the people of Cameroon. And that's something which is important. So we did the campaign respecting the laws to the best of our abilities. And from the information that we got, Mr. Chiruma is supposed to have won the elections. And what was logical was that the Constitutional Council would respect Elecam first. And subsequently, the Constitutional Council would respect the wishes and aspirations of the people who voted for Mr. Chiruma. Unfortunately, yesterday, the Constitutional Council, which is a body that was created by Mr. Biya, handpicked members of the council to, tailor-made to satisfy his whims and caprices, to play to his biddings, did the obvious in the eyes of those who appointed him as the winner of the election. It's unfortunate because it was a sad day, a bitter day for this country, for the progress that the gains that we have made as a country in terms of democracy and openness. We took steps behind because of the fact that the wishes of the people wasn't respected by Elecam and the Constitutional Council.
Like you said, it was really a sad day. We saw thousands of Cameroonians really in despair yesterday after the Constitutional Council proclaimed the President Paul Biya as winner. Barrister, I just wanted to find out from you. Following up with that discussion, because you said that when you reached out to Issa Shoma Bakari, the people of the Northwest and the Southwest regions were your main goal. They were your objective. They were the regions, people in these regions were the reason why you decided to endorse Issa Shoma, because you believed that he is the man of the moment and that he could do something to end the conflict that started in 2016. Looking at the results in these regions that favored President Paul Biya, more than 80% in the Northwest, more than 60% in the Southwest. How do you feel seeing that? Because we've seen a lot of condemnations from people from these regions.
Maybe it was a farce. It's the biggest scam that has happened in this century. In the history of electioneering, racketeering, and theft, this would go down as the biggest in the history of humankind. If you were to equate these to the gravity of crimes, this would morph to a level of electoral genocide. That is the level. It is a crime against a people with an intent to show to the world that people who for the last 8 years have been displaced from their homes, have been arbitrarily arrested and detained. Some have been maimed. Their villages have been burned. They have not been able to go to school. Their brothers and sisters are refugees. They would vote for the perpetrator of these heinous crimes against their people. This is the worst crime that I have seen in this country for a long time. It is embarrassing. It is disgusting. And I will tell you that the people who are part of this widespread and systematic election theft. They have lost any respect I have for them in my eyes. Whether you call them honorable, whether you call them chiefs, whether you call them senators, they are as midgetal in my eyes like anything. They don't need any respect in the eyes of anybody. You cannot tell me, it is unfathomable that you will tell me that in the Southwest and the Northwest, Mr. Biya had the scores they had. In places where the elections could not be rigged, in Fako, for example, he was clearly defeated. You know, they came up with imaginary votes. And this is something that was spearheaded by the honorable members, senators, ministers. These are people who teach their kids that stealing, lies telling, fraud should be punishable. And they use that as a badge of honor. They are using that for them to maintain their position in government. They are dishonorable persons in my eyes. And I think in the eyes of every sane and reasonable person from the Southwest and Northwest, none of them. And I don't want to use very hard language like Bibi would say, I will spit on their graves, you know. But what they have done to the people of this region, it's so embarrassing. It's so shameful. And they have the audacity to do after parties, to celebrate. What are you celebrating? You're celebrating theft? You're celebrating scamming of people? I mean, you should be hiding your head somewhere.
Yes, just Barrister, I like the way the conversation is going, but maybe you have to take off your headset, Bernard. Am I correct? Because it fades in and out, and people really need to understand and hear you.
Okay. I've taken it off. So can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you now.
This is something that the people who have done this are supposed to bury their head in shame, not to be celebrating. I don't want to say their champagne party would end. Their champagne party is ended. It goes beyond the last kicks of a dying horse. It clearly showed that the people had risen up, just like how they rose up in 2016 and 2017 to say enough is enough. The people had risen up against those who have held them captive for all these years, for those who think only about themselves, for those whose priority is about themselves and the children, at the expense of.
So you are saying that the results that we saw from the Northwest and the Southwest did not exist and they are false.
No. These are just cooked up results. These are just cooked up results, and they know. Unfortunately for them, the people they are trying to please, their brothers in the party who are from East Cameroon, they know that these results were cooked up. So whoever thinks that this result would be used to reappoint him or her, their comrades know that these results were faulty. These results were cooked up. So at the end of the day, yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for that introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry about what just happened with the network. It's just a technical issues, and they happen every now and then. We are sorry, but we're happy that we are back. Barrister, in 2018, you are one of those who represented Maurice Kamto and the MRSA at the Constitutional Council during the post-electoral litigation, and you made a strong case for the annulment of the elections based on what happened in the Anglophone zones, Northwest and Southwest regions. Yeah. In 2025, you endorsed Chiruma's candidacy, despite the fact that the Constitutional Council kicked out or ignored all the petitions, all the reasoned and intelligent arguments that you made in 2018. Did you have any hope in 2025 that the system was going to read the results from the ballot box as you saw them?
No, I didn't. To be honest, I didn't have any hope. I think I initially said, because you could tell, Elecam and the Constitutional Council was created tailor-made to ensure that Mr. Biya perpetuates himself in power. It gives it a cloak of legality, because they can argue that this is the highest court in the land that has confirmed what Elekam has confirmed the victory of Mr. Biya, and you cannot appeal beyond the Constitutional Council. So we have a problem in this country because institutions are used as a tool, or the law is used as a mechanism to violate rights, to trample on the will of the people. If you look at the definition of terrorism, the anti-terrorism law, it's just a transposition of the Aijos law that he used, and that has been transformed to a modern anti-terrorism law. So it's always used, unfortunately, it's always used against the people. But there was something in the spirit that says never die, never give up that. Because unlike in 2018, this was overwhelming, that the gentlemen at Elekam and the Constitutional Council would at least, for one, say, you know what, this is the time to say goodbye to the regime in place, and let's allow the will of the people. Because it was clear, I'm telling you, even to some of the members of the ruling party, who I know some of them had called to congratulate us, they knew they were defeated. In private conversations, they accepted the fact that they had been defeated. Everybody who had eyes, the blinds literally saw that they were defeated. There was joy and euphoria everywhere. Because it wasn't about Issa Chiruma. It was about every Cameroonian. It was about the potholes. It was about driving from Douala to Boya. That was enough to anti-campaign the ruling party. It was about the garbage. It was about everything that created an enabling environment for them to be defeated. It wasn't anybody. They themselves created the enabling environment for them to be defeated. Unfortunately,
you've set the pace on the argument that the elections lack credibility, therefore the outcome is not legitimate. And on the legal front, we have already hit the summit of all appeals of all of the legal procedure, which is the Constitutional Council. It doesn't have any appeal after that. And on Issa Chiruma called on Cameroonians to get out on the streets and celebrate the victory on Sunday, which was done across the country. And yesterday, we still saw mobilizations across the streets. At this point, is sovereignty coming back to the people? Are the people trying to get back their sovereignty to gain legitimacy? Or are the people going to continue in the line of legality, void of legitimacy?
It's a kind of a catch-22. It's a very dicey kind of situation between people's power that gives them the legitimacy to do what they are doing, and also look at sovereignty from another aspect. When you look at legality, on that the Constitutional Council has acknowledged the fact that Mr. Biya has won. While the streets, we the people, as the Constitution says, they say, no, we won't. How do we get a kind of a win-win situation? That is to me, that is a question. A win-win situation where Cameroon comes out as the victor in such a situation. How do we understand that people have a right to protest? It's a fundamental right to protest, fundamental freedom, them to protest. Their right to protest and assembly, but at the same time that the state owes them a duty to protect them and not to use excessive force in quarrying down the protests, whilst equally also ensuring that the protest doesn't go overboard to destroy public and private property. That is the thin line that one has to navigate. If we were dealing in a real proper world or country where democracy thrives, they would be listening to the people on the streets. They'll be asking questions. Why did we win, but the streets are ungovernable? there is a serious problem. They would be talking. They would be trying to find a solution. Not the kind of arrogance that we have seen either in their celebration or coming out from the mouth of certain ministers, which incites the population, which adds fuel to an already volatile situation. How does everybody calm down and try to reason, and then we'll find a solution?
I think that on this note, we have to bring on board Barrister Michelle Ndoki, who has also joined us yesterday. We couldn't see her beautiful face, but she is here with us today to also talk about the post-election protest and how people have started dying. People are killed. We are seeing in different regions how people are being shot by the military. But the Barrister Felix Kongo was saying something during his discussion with Bernard. He was really questioning the credibility of the Constitutional Council and even the elections governing body, the vote counting commission, and so on and so forth. And I was just wondering, Barrister Michelle Ndoki, I wanted to find out from you, do you think Issa Shuma Bakari was right to have told the people, Cameroonians who have been standing by him, that it wasn't necessary to wait and hear from the Constitutional Council on Monday?
Yes, I think he was right. And I'll give you one reason. Soon after he did that, when the National Commission in charge of compiling the votes gave their own result, you remember the newspapers, first page, everywhere, Biya has won with the majority. It was everywhere. So that means, in fact, it's not illegal at all to announce the results as we know it. It becomes illegal when you're not saying that Paul Biya has won. So I think he was right, because one of the key learnings from 2018 is that we have to own the narrative, because otherwise it becomes a communication battle. We are facing a regime which takes pride in suppressing freedom of expression. So anything, especially if you want to uphold the truth, you have to fight your way to the position where you will be upholding that truth. So the fastest you declare what you believe is right and true, the better. Because otherwise, you find yourself in a defense position where the regime has already spread their lies all over, and I've experienced it in my personal life. How many times was I obliged to show my leg because they had spread a myth according to which I made up the wounds on my leg? How many times? So because you are not there to control that narrative, you lose in an environment like ours. It was crucial for him to say, after everything that has been done, for me to be able to control the results at the end of the day, I can tell you this is what happened, or I'm ahead of my competitors. It was essential, because otherwise it would have been too late. And it doesn't make sense to tell people that it is only the Constitutional Council that is authorized to proclaim the result. Proclaim has a meaning in law. Proclaim means it is you, the body in question, that has the power. The announcement that is made by that body is the announcement that counts. That's what it means to proclaim. That is, you are the one entitled to say, finally, this is what we are going to consider the result. It doesn't mean that nobody can talk about it earlier. And if you take in other countries, where take France that I know well, take even Senegal last year, when the following morning they announced that Diomaye Faye had won, it was not the proclamation. That was not a proclamation under the law. The official body in charge of proclaiming the result did that few days after. And the result that they proclaimed was slightly different. You always see a difference of 0.3, 0.4, 0.7%. That is what is called proclamation. But nobody waits until then. In all our modern societies, in France, the day of the election, when they announced this is who is going to be the president of the country at 8 p.m., it is not a proclamation.
Yeah,
it is the result of a census, or yes.
Yeah,
and
even in Côte d'Ivoire.
After, sorry.
Yeah, even in Côte d'Ivoire yesterday yesterday Monday, the results of the elections were already announced provisionally by the elections management body. And I think the problem in Cameroon is when you stop the elections management body from announcing the results as they come in, you create a dark period, you create a vacuum of information, and that is where they want to control the narrative. And
exactly.
Yeah, you mentioned something about narrative control. Do you think by Chiruma declaring and publishing the reports that you are part of those who collected, he actually won the communications battle and the narrative to the extent that more Cameroonians believe his version of the story over the official version of the story?
Yes. Why is that? Because we've always been working in silos in Cameroon. So you will know what happened in Douala, but you will not know what happened in Northwest and Southwest. So when you know what happened in your polling station and you're happy with what happened in your polling stations, but 2 weeks after they tell you, oh, Paul Biya has won again, you're disappointed, but you can't say anything to the contrary because you don't know what happened elsewhere. By announcing it from a national perspective, he allowed us to be confident that what happened in our own area corresponded to what happened elsewhere. And I think it was important because this was clearly, as Enjeh has always put it, a referendum against the regime. So it was important for us to know that everywhere in Cameroon, people, our brothers and sisters, shared this feeling that we needed to get rid of this regime. I think it was awaited as some sort of recognition of all the efforts put in to get to that result. I mean, the voters forgot all the divisions, all the problems of religion, tribes, everything. They just put it aside. They even decided to forget the grievances they might have against Issa Chiroma Bakari. We put that as a people, we put all of that aside because we were of the opinion that the one thing that matters is we know how harmful this regime is to us all over the country. And this is the problem we have to solve as a matter of priority. So
thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much, La Fiancée du Peuple. I don't know if you still use that our name, but yeah, let's welcome Jean-Claude Mbede. He's also been following up developments around the elections, and he just told me off the screen that he's been doing some compilation of reactions. So we were talking with Merton Doki about the communication battle, Jean-Claude, do you have the impression that the communication battle, if it's succeeded internally, has also succeeded externally?
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to say to great your very great guest, starting from Barista in Congo. I think this is, I think I saw him last time in Munich 7 years ago. So, and also to Barista Michel Doki, as well as Mimi. Thank you so much for having me once again. So, talking about communication, yeah, it is what's lacking, I think. And even we are asking ourselves who is governing, who is managing our state at this step. Because quand vous voyez ce que ces gens sont en train de faire, les hommes d'État ne gouvernent pas. On ne peut pas gouverner un État comme le Cameroun avec des émotions, avec ce que nous sommes en train de voir aujourd'hui. Ils sont en train de perdre. En fait, ils ont troqué la communication avec la propagande. Et malheureusement, ce régime qui procède par la manipulation a pensé que la propagande allait passer parce que ils sont à bout de leurs prévisions. On ne peut plus rien attendre en termes d'innovation stratégique avec eux. C'est complètement, ils sont au bout de ce qu'ils avaient parce qu'ils n'avaient pas prévu plus que ça. D'ailleurs, lorsque vous avez comme le parti au pouvoir qui a quand même les meilleurs experts, parmi les meilleurs experts du Cameroun qui sont des anciens de communication et de stratégie, on les a mis de côté pour confier la gestion de la communication et de la propagande à des professionnels de médias puisqu'ils travaillent pour des chaînes de télévision, mais qui ont plutôt décidé au cours d'une élection aussi capitale que celle-ci de venir expérimenter leurs petites connaissances en termes d'intelligence artificielle pour produire les fake news, ainsi de suite. C'est pour tout un régime, ces jeunes garçons qu'on a vus là, qu'on a embarqués pour essayer de manipuler l'opinion publique de tout un pays. Et ils ne feront pas plus que ça. La preuve en est que lorsque nous avons commencé à démontrer les limites, à démonter d'abord les fake news et la propagande malsaine qui était faite, et que nous avons démontré les fake news qu'il y avait, et c'est là où la violence a commencé. Parce que lorsque vous discutez avec un inculte, quelqu'un qui n'est pas intellectuellement élaboré, et vous allez vous rendre compte que les personnes qui sont violentes, même dans la violence conjugale, ainsi de suite, ce sont les personnes qui ne sont pas capables d'avoir une assise intellectuelle pour pouvoir discuter avec des partenaires. C'est exactement ça à quoi nous assistons maintenant de la part de ce gouvernement. Ils avaient prévu de manipuler l'opinion jusqu'à la fin et ils avaient prévu que jusqu'à la proclamation des résultats, leur manipulation aurait suffi à mettre tout le monde au garde à vous et ils ne s'étaient vraiment pas, ils n'avaient pas planifié ça. Or, quand on gouverne un État, il y a beaucoup de précautions à prendre. Il y a toujours un plan A, un plan B. On doit toujours savoir. D'ailleurs, lorsque vous êtes ministre, vous cotez un dossier à vos collaborateurs, vous vous attendez à ce qu'ils vous apportent des solutions en plan A, plan B, plan C. C'est-à-dire, si ce plan fonctionne, voilà ce qu'on va faire. S'il ne fonctionne pas, voilà ce qu'on va faire. Même en termes de communication, d'ailleurs, lorsque vous êtes chargé de communication d'une grande institution, vous prévoyez que si le plan A ne fonctionne pas, voilà ce qu'on va dire. Par exemple, je prends un petit exemple. Lorsqu'il y a un match de football, le team press officer d'une équipe, le spokesperson, doit savoir qu'en cas de victoire, voilà ce qu'on va dire comme message. En cas de nul, voilà ce qu'on va dire en fonction des enjeux. Et en cas de défaite, voici ce qu'on va dire. Et puis, tout le monde est préparé à savoir ce qui va être envoyé comme communication. Ce n'est pas le cas. Parce qu'au Cameroun, une fois encore, on n'aime pas dialoguer parce qu'il me souvient, et ce n'est pas Maître Akbo qui va nous démentir, que la crise au Nozo a commencé pendant qu'il demandait aux gens de dialoguer, d'écouter. Je l'avais suivi plusieurs fois où il appelait le gouvernement à écouter, simplement à écouter, même s'il ne voulait pas dialoguer, d'écouter seulement, mais ça n'a pas empêché qu'on l'arrête. et qui se retrouve en prison. Parce que, pourquoi est-ce qu'il a été arrêté? C'est parce qu'ils avaient prévu que la manipulation, à ce moment-là, allait progresser. Et lorsque la manipulation n'a pas donné, et ils se sont rendus compte qu'ils avaient affaire à des personnes qui ont le cerveau, parce qu'on ne sait pas qui leur avait dit, comme ils ont certainement cru à l'expression qu'ils avaient développée péjorative, où on vous disait, ce sont des Bamenda. That means people who are not even able to use their own brain. Donc, c'était ça. Et lorsqu'ils se sont retrouvés avec des gens qui avaient dans leur cerveau pour agir, ils étaient obligés d'utiliser la force pour les mettre en prison et essayer de les comprendre. C'est la même situation dans laquelle on est. On a perdu des hommes d'État au Cameroun. On n'en a plus. Mais vraiment plus. Les derniers hommes d'État qu'il y a dans ce gouvernement, les Laurent Esso, ils sont déjà aussi âgés que le président. Et d'ailleurs, ils ont été mis à l'éteignoir. Ils ne se font plus entendre. Malheureusement, nous sommes dans une république de gamins. Comme l'avait dit un philosophe en France, en parlant d'Emmanuel Macron il y a 5 ans, il avait dit « La France a mis un gamin à l'Élysée. Préparons-nous à en payer le prix. » Donc, actuellement, nous avons des gamins au palais de l'unité. Préparons-nous à en payer le prix. Et c'est pour ça que le peuple ne doit pas reculer. Il faut les enlever pour reprendre l'État et le remettre sur orbite.
Thank you so much, Jean-Claude. This is really edifying because, just to summarize, I might not be the best translator here. Maybe Bernard can. But I think Jean-Claude is just explaining that for the first time, those who think that they are the best communicators and can relay things better to support the regime that is in place have just found themselves being countered by those that have been able to do the job meticulously. We've seen a lot of propaganda, use of AI. People are using AI to pretend as if to pass across propaganda messages, but they've encountered reactions from people, from big brains, from people like Jean-Claude, from human rights lawyers. People have come together to be able to counter some of the fake news, some of the AI publications that we've been seeing online in support of the regime that is in place. So this is something that we've not really seen before, Barrister Felix Nkongo. For the first time, Cameroonians are coming together as one man for something, change, for one thing, which is change. Before, when we are talking about the Anglophone crisis, is in the northwest, southwest. When it was Boko Haram is in the far north. But for the first time now, we are talking about a national crisis, and everyone has taken it so personal. How important is this for a nation like Cameroon, and how effective is this potentially going to be able to bring that change that the people of Cameroon so desire?
Well, the pain and suffering across the board is enormous. It affects everybody. It affects some people of the ruling party who went and voted Issa Chiroma, because they also feel the cost of living. They feel unemployment. Their kids have gone to school and have not graduated. I always tell my friends, even those in the CPDM, I'm like, you know what? The Douala Boya route, everybody uses it. If you like, wear CPDM uniform from now till next month. If there's no water, there's no light, there's a garbage in town. So I think everybody feels the pain. That is why people overwhelmingly across the political spectrum voted for Issa Chiroma. This is a new dawn in Cameroonian politics. I think we see how history is being rewritten, that Cameroonians have come together, irrespective of religion, irrespective of language, irrespective of region. Cameroonians have built synergy across the board, and their common problem is the current regime. And they reacted by voting against the regime. Whether it will bring the regime down is something that you cannot tell. Nobody has a crystal ball. But what I see positive is the fact that we have broken the myth that Cameroonians cannot work together, that there's always infighting amongst Cameroonians. To me, that's the positive that I take, that 4 months ago or 5 months ago, nobody would have believed what we are seeing in Cameroon today. It shows also that when people are willing, they are determined, they are committed, they can move mountains. And this is what we see is happening. You know, I don't want to raise hopes or expectations, but what I see is a people determined. It's a people ready to fight and defend their votes. It's young men and women who people used to laugh that they were not interested in politics. They have decided to take their destiny in their hands. And to me, it's a signal to the regime to understand that it's no longer business as usual. That the language that you use in this period of intense crisis, heightened tension, should not be the language of hate or provoking people. It should be a language of not because you have a hammer, everything becomes a nail. The time where you bully, where you terrorize the civilian population has passed. People are not scared of being arrested. People are not scared of press conferences from Atangaji. We have moved beyond that. He too should understand. And any arrogant person in government or in the ruling party should understand that for this country to move forward, you have to tone down that language. And if they are patriotic as they claim, if they love this country as they claim, they have to read the signals in the room. They have to understand that the people are determined this time. And they have to tone down. I will be blunt with you. There are people in this government who have contributed about 50% to the victory of the opposition because of their language, because of their tone, because of their manners, because of their arrogance. You cannot hijack a country. You cannot think that because you are a minister, you own this country. You can talk to people in a very condescending manner. They did that.
We are just having this breaking news that is coming.
But they're doing that to 30 million Cameroonians. And we say enough is enough.
Yes, we are having this breaking news that I can see on the screen. It says that Issa Shoma says that the people will not back down. Let me just quote him as well. Will not yield to fear or to manipulation. We remain united, mobilized, and will continue to resist until final victory. Before Bernard comes in, I just wanted us to move to another topic of discussion, which is the international community has started reacting. We have the European Union, Amnesty International, and Human Rights Watch have all called for independent investigations and accountability. Do you think that this is going to be enough pressure for the government in place? Or it's not going to create any impact? Is it not going to create any impact?
You miss the Secretary General of the UN also.
Yes, the Secretary General
of the UN also made a statement.
The European Union, Human Rights Watch, and Amnesty International. Yes. Is it enough pressure, or should people just say, okay, this is just any? Is this enough pressure, or should people just say, okay, let's continue and do our thing our way? We cannot look or depend on what the international community has to say.
This is a regime also that has been able to master the art of doing diplomacy and understanding the mindset of the international community also. These statements are good, but you cannot take these statements to the bank as if it's a collateral that with these statements, something would actually happen. We have seen where there are made statements in this country with regards to the Anglophone crisis, and nothing has really happened. So, I mean, they need to go beyond these statements. The public also has to keep up the pressure. But I am praying, and this is something also that for everybody who has Cameroon at heart, we should pray that this confrontation should not be very violent. That's why the Secretary General of the UN talked about use of excessive force, that the military should also exercise some restraint, because these are all Cameroonians, and also the protesters should ensure that they don't destroy, public and private property, because no matter what, this is still property of Cameroonians, and if you cannot be fighting to liberate a country and at the same time destroying public and private property. So there's a need for the, I mean, the people in the Issa Chiruma camp also to increase these discussions, this talking to, reaching out to friends of Cameroon. We expect other countries, we expect Nigeria to make a statement. We expect other countries also. The AU should make a statement, you know, ECOWAS, ECAS, I mean, ECAS, they should also make statements, because whatever happens to Cameroon affects other countries in the CEMAC region, in the ECAS area, and equally in the entire entire Africa. So there's a need for them to make statements. There's a need for them to try to find some solution. You know,
yes, Barrister.
Dialogue has to start. It has to start going on.
Yeah, Boris. I think at the fundamental level, the preliminary statements from international organizations is always going to be no excessive force, avoid violence, and they would avoid taking a stance as to who is a legitimate winner, because they want to revert to sovereignty and let state institutions actually decide who is the winner of the elections. But you made a statement about the destruction of property, both private and public. I want us to piggyback on this, because that is always the bone of contention. The international community and human rights advocates always want that there should be no violence on both sides. But there have been incidences where agents provocateurs have been identified within the protesters as part of them, whereas they have simply been planted by the opposing camp. So if protesters are going out on a peaceful demonstration, how do they identify the agent provocateur, especially in a situation where, when there is destruction, the herd mentality pushes everyone to get into destruction instead of identifying and segregating them? So how would you advise, using your international law experience, how would you advise protesters to deal with people they identify as agent provocateur in the midst?
Ideally, some of these protests are supposed to be organized. Unfortunately, there are times when it becomes sporadic and not organized, you know, where you don't really have a leader. But after a couple of days or hours, they find a way of having somebody who has to coordinate what they are doing. And I think that's also why in the UN and the EU statement, they talked about proper investigation, because also the state has mechanisms to put in place to be able to actually investigate, to know who actually did what, because it's not good for the image of the protesters if they are destroying public property, okay? Because you are trying to win the minds and hearts of people who might not be supportive of your cause, but they might have a soft spot for you. So you don't alienate them further away. And even people of the ruling party who might not have voted for you, but who think that change is necessary in Cameroon. So that's why we always pray, we always try to avoid getting into this situation. Because when you get into this situation,
in a situation like this one, in a situation like this one, in a situation like this one where Chiruma just said, get out into the streets and celebrate the victory and tell the Constitutional Council to respect the results from the ballot box. It can hardly ever be organized because it wasn't planned. He said it 2 days to the demonstrations. So it's very likely that the agent provocateur will find themselves in the midst. So how would they
in situations like this also, I would call on Mr. Chiruma to make a statement saying something as if, please make sure that you don't fall into the trap to be seen as if you guys are destroying private and public property, because you know that they will try to pin it on you. You know that they will try to tag you as a violent groupings of people who are just trying to steal, you know, lazy people who are trying to steal. So I mean, I'm saying this out of experience, because in another situation, we used to issue communique late, like, please, you know, make sure that you don't commit XYZ. You're dealing with a powerful state. I mean, they were talking about the way they were trying to manipulate the media. So you want to be on record also that you said it. Okay, and some of the people can hold that to argue that things like that should not be done. These agents provocateurs would find a way of coming into it because they want to discredit the entire movement. But they need to find a way not to give the agents provocateurs a room, because we don't want to be having a conversation of just the wrong things that the protesters have done without looking at the bigger picture. Why are they protesting? Why are people going to the street? If these elections were not stolen, people would not be on the street. That is a fundamental problem. It's just like we have seen how they've been calling for peace and serenity, which is a good thing, which I like it. I would say it anytime. But I expected those same people to caution those who were rigging the elections that please don't do it. They would have the moral authority to call for people to exercise restraint when they had also talked about those who were rigging elections. Unfortunately, they did not say it. They did not say it. So whatever they say today, nobody really believes in what they are saying. So it's a tricky situation, you know. Nobody has a magic wand. Nobody has a solution. But this is our country, and the leaders of this country, they have what it takes in their hands to ensure that this country doesn't go to flame. It is in their hands. It is in their hands to make sure that we can take a step back, ask ourselves a question. Why are we here? How did we get here? And try, because this is still at the nascent stage. It is still
yes. Before we bring in Michelle Bernard, I think that we have the video of Issa Chiroma Bakari addressing Cameroonians this evening. Maybe we listen, and then Barrister Michelle Ndoki can then come in and also react, Bernard.
All right, thank you.
It's there now. Yes.
Dear compatriot, my fellow citizen Cameroonian, brothers and sisters in the diaspora. Today, a dark chapter in our country's history has come to an end. The Constitutional Council has just announced truncated result awarding a fictitious victory to the outgoing President Paul Biya. In so doing, this institution has turned away from its mission as a guardian of truth and democracy to become a partisan body and enemy of the sovereignty of the people. Yet, the truth of the ballot is clear. A report from our polling station, compiled and secured by our representatives across the country, demonstrate unequivocally that we won this election by a large majority. This victory is not mine alone. It belongs to the Cameroonian people. At this moment, I wish to pay a solemn tribute to our brothers and sisters who fell in the bullet of a regime that became criminal while they were peacefully exercising a universal right. Their sacrifice will never be in vain. Their blood reminds us that freedom, justice, and dignity are worth more than fear and repression. People of Cameroon, you turned out in large number despite intimidation and threat. I thank you. This time, they will not stop us. We have already won. No falsified proclamation can erase the legitimacy given to us by ballot box. We demand an immediate end to the barbaric act, the killing, the arbitrary arrest, and the intimidation. Setting a country ablaze and drenched in the blood simply to cling to power is not only a moral failing, it is a crime against the people and against humanity. I solemnly declare that the people will not back down. We will not yield to fear or to manipulation. We remain united, mobilized, and will continue to resist until final victory. As within our neighbors, in 2010, legitimacy will triumph over instrumentalized legality. Cameroonians must understand and remain convinced that no one will bring about this change for them, because once again, there is no dignity for those who expect everything from others. The founding father did it. Let us prove ourselves worthy of the legacy that they left us by rising to this challenge, regardless of its complexity and difficulties. The international community must now take responsibility. Everyone will have to answer before history and before international courts for the side they took, the side of the people or the side of oppression. My dear compatriot, the time has come. Let us stand tall and strong, determined, but peaceful. For our strength lies in our unity, and no one can take our victory away from us. Long live a free Cameroon, long live the sovereign people, and may God bless.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was the speech by Issa Chiruma Bakari. It's as old as 5 minutes ago, and he's giving us updates on his next steps. So, La Fiancée du Peuple, what are your first impressions from that speech?
Okay, I missed the end of your sentence.
What are your what are your first impressions from that speech after listening to Issa Chiruma Bakari come out in this way? What are your first impressions?
I want to answer in French. I think you have French-speaking people on your live.
We do. We have both.
Ok. Donc, quelles sont mes premières impressions? Je trouve que Monsieur Issa Chiruma s'exprime avec la responsabilité et la conscience de la gravité de la charge qui est la sienne aujourd'hui. Il a la charge d'être le visage et le leader qui nous guide dans ces temps incertains sur le chemin de la préservation de la vérité, de la protection de la vérité, de la promotion de la vérité. Et je crois que c'est une tâche vraiment colossale parce que elle implique de prendre aussi la responsabilité du risque de dérive que cela entraîne. Aujourd'hui, quand Monsieur Issa Chiruma Bakari s'exprime, qu'il prend position par rapport à la situation du Cameroun, il doit à tout moment garder en tête que chaque mot qu'il prononce, chaque prise de position peut avoir des conséquences directes sur la vie d'un être humain. Et c'est une responsabilité terrible. Il doit, depuis que ces élections sont terminées, choisir en permanence entre préserver la volonté du peuple et céder à la pression. Et avec la manière dont l'esprit humain fonctionne, très rapidement, et ça a d'ailleurs déjà commencé, j'ai vu le communiqué du ministre de l'administration territoriale tout à l'heure, on va dire que c'est lui qui est responsable des massacres, et que c'est lui qui est responsable des destructions, que c'est lui qui est responsable des morts et des pertes de biens matériels, parce qu'il a osé dire qu'il avait remporté ces élections. Comment on justifie cette affirmation? Ça, personne ne s'interroge là-dessus. Et je crois que humainement, c'est une responsabilité terrible. Et je voudrais exprimer personnellement mon admiration par rapport à la manière ferme et constante avec laquelle il se tient aux côtés de la vérité. Dans tous les débats que nous avons aujourd'hui et dans toutes les réflexions que nous faisons par rapport à la situation, nous ne devons pas oublier les vraies responsabilités. Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? Il s'est passé qu'un régime qui brille par son incompétence et son absence de soin de démontrer pour les Camerounais, a présenté quelqu'un à des élections présidentielles et nous a demandé aux électeurs camerounais d'aller choisir un président de la République pour les 7 prochaines années, ce que nous avons fait. Et une fois que ça a été fait, ce régime s'est organisé pour changer la décision que nous avons prise et nous imposer la décision des quelques membres qui composent ce régime. On ne parle même pas de 20 personnes. Si vous essayez de mettre un nom, un visage sur les gens qui sont en train de perpétrer les exactions que l'on voit aujourd'hui, vous allez citer spontanément Paul Biya, M. Ngongo, M. Betty Assomo, M. Atanganji. Ça n'ira pas plus loin que ça. Vous ne citerez même pas les 60 ministres qui forment le gouvernement. Vous ne citerez même pas quelconque, je ne sais pas, le secrétaire d'État à la Défense, le DGSN. Il y a quelques personnes que nous pouvons identifier qui ont décidé qu'elles n'allaient pas tenir compte de la volonté de millions d'entre nous. Et qu'elles allaient nous mentir en disant qu'elles n'avaient pas compris ce que nous avions décidé et qu'elles allaient nous forcer à accepter ces décisions. Voilà ce qui s'est passé. C'est pour ça que vous voyez le président du Conseil constitutionnel sabrer le champagne pour se féliciter d'avoir accompli son devoir, parce qu'il considère que lui, il a des devoirs vis-à-vis du président de la République ou de sa famille, ou je ne sais pas, mais il n'a aucun devoir vis-à-vis de nous. Voilà ce qui s'est passé.
Yeah. Thank you, Barrister. Let me come to Jean-Claude. Jean-Claude, you really look tired. You told me you were tired, but let's have this and get over it.
It's okay.
Yeah. So Chiruma actually says that the government should put an immediate end to the barbaric acts of arrest and intimidation. And then he goes further to say Cameroonians are determined, but they should be peaceful. Do you think he's talking on both sides? If they are determined to stop the government and at the same time he's asking them to be peaceful, is he contradicting himself? Because when we look at demonstrations that have worked in other countries, there is always a mix of violence and peaceful protests. So where does Chiruma stand here?
Yeah, I don't think there is, and there even shouldn't be any type of, as you say, contradiction. But of course, I will be talking under the, the control of both the two law experts who are here. International law, we have the principle of proportionality. I don't know if the same word. So when you are acting, maybe I will try to explain it in French because it's very technical and I'm not an expert of law. Je crois qu'en termes de, dans le droit international, il y a le principe de la proportionnalité et on tient absolument à ce que ce soit respecté dans toutes les étapes de la vie. Et je crois que si c'était observé, pour demander aux gens d'être pacifiques dans leur... il ne faut pas utiliser les armes. Et je crois que depuis samedi, depuis dimanche, que les gens ont commencé à manifester, tant qu'il n'y avait pas d'armes à feu, tant que les premières images des forces de maintien de l'ordre étaient celles des professionnels qui collaboraient, qui semblaient encadrer la population, je crois qu'il n'y avait pas de problème. Mais dès lors que la violence a été exercée, c'est là où on a pu noter toutes les autres exactions qui sont venues. Pourquoi je le dis? Parce que, ainsi qu'on l'a déjà noté, dans le processus de la manipulation qui avait été prévu pour cette élection, la propagande qui avait été, parce que ce régime, il fonctionne essentiellement par la propagande et la corruption. Corruption avec de l'argent, corruption en termes sociologiques, de tribalisme, et c'est ça d'ailleurs qui a conduit certaines personnalités à l'arrestation. Donc je dis, quand ils ont fini d'utiliser la propagande qu'ils avaient prévue, et là, il commence effectivement l'usage disproportionné de la force. Et à partir de là aussi, on se retrouve avec des jeunes qui doivent se défendre par tous les moyens. Et il n'est pas exclu que pendant que ça s'embrase, ce n'est pas qu'il y a eu d'abord des violences et puis les forces de l'ordre ont dû intervenir pour sauver les gens. Donc, pour revenir à la question que vous me posez, effectivement, mais est-ce que Issa Chiroma et Maître Michel Ndoki l'a dit tout à l'heure, il parle, et quand vous l'écoutez, il mesure chaque mot. On y retrouve un peu de tout, hein. Pour quelqu'un, c'est quand même admirable. On y retrouve un peu de tout, beaucoup, très mesuré, très prudent, mesurant la responsabilité qui lui incombe en ce moment. Mais sauf que, est-ce qu'en face, il retrouve quelqu'un? En face, il retrouve plutôt des gens qui brandissent des menaces, qui criminalisent tout. Au Cameroun, pénalise tout, criminalise tout. Au Cameroun, et le ministre de l'administration territoriale, il est tout. Il est le ministère public, il est le commissaire du gouvernement, il a un instinct répressif de procureur, parce que jusqu'aujourd'hui encore, il a aligné il a fait une litanie de ce qui pourrait être le chef d'inculpation de M. Issa Chiroma. Il nous a dit qu'il était inculpé pour, je ne sais pas, outrage à la patrie, insurrection, révolution, mais ce qui n'est vraiment pas. C'est-à-dire, c'est ce personnage-là qui va rester dans l'histoire comme l'un des sinistres. Et c'est quand même dommage parce que quand on sait que ce ministère-là a quand même été occupé par des personnes d'une certaine classe, comme Amara Fami Douyaya, comme le gouverneur Kungwetima à l'époque, comme Émile Anzetsungi, on se dit, mais comment est-ce qu'il a fait, Paul Biya, pour faire disparaître ces personnalités qui avaient même, à vue d'œil, l'odeur d'homme d'État, pour qu'on se retrouve avec un repris de justice qui est là simplement en train de menacer les gens à tout bord. Donc, lorsque vous avez ces déclarations qui sont de va-t-en-guerre, vous croyez que le message du président Chiroma va aller à qui? Ça veut dire que ce gouvernement, il n'est pas prêt à dialoguer parce que on a quand même l'impression que le président Chiroma, il fait une main tendue jusque-là, et il fait même ce qu'aurait dû faire le gouvernement depuis que les résultats ont été proclamés. On n'a aucune déclaration apaisée du côté du gouvernement depuis que c'est passé. On s'étonne de cette façon de gérer une crise aussi importantes que celles qui secouent notre pays en ce moment. Il n'y a absolument aucune prise de parole. Ils ont essayé jusque-là parce qu'au niveau diplomatique, c'est un échec cuisant, mais cuisant. Et ce n'est pas fini parce que ce que nous avons fait aujourd'hui comme travail, ce n'est pas fini parce qu'après l'Union européenne et les Nations unies, si vous prenez les deux paragraphes, si vous prenez les deux statements de l'Union européenne et des Nations unies, vous voyez que les premiers paragraphes ont les mêmes éléments de langage. Absolument. Et j'ai appris à lire les communiqués des Nations unies. Ils disent tout dans le premier paragraphe. Et quand vous voyez là, ils ont utilisé droits de l'homme, droits fondamentaux, respect, enquête approfondie. Et puis le reste, effectivement, comme disait le maître Nkongo, ce n'est pas comme si on va s'attendre à ce qui s'immisce dans les affaires internes pour vous dire que c'est elle qui a gagné. Ils ne le diront pas, ça d'autant plus qu'en ce moment, on doit s'attendre à ce qu'il y ait d'autres steps. Parce que quand vous voyez tous les États, y compris la France, tous les États de l'Union européenne, ont adhéré, ont travaillé ensemble, ont fait une sortie commune et qui a été partagée. Et si vous allez sur les pages des différentes ambassades, chacune d'elles a partagé le communiqué de l'Union européenne pour le reconnaître comme l'unique position commune de toute l'Union européenne.
Okay.
Une position ferme, mais très prudente aussi, qui laisse beaucoup d'ouverture par rapport à ce qui pourrait se passer dans les prochains jours, et ça va leur permettre effectivement de donner le dernier coup de grâce. Or, pendant qu'on y est, nous sommes en train de travailler encore pour amener le président Donald Trump qui exige avoir beaucoup plus d'éléments. Je crois que nous avons une équipe aujourd'hui qui a été reçue au département d'État américain et je crois
Let's talk about that in a moment, Jean-Claude. Let's talk about the next steps in a moment.
All right.
Yes, please. Maitre Agbo, you listened to President Issa Chiruma Bakari's speech, and he mentioned the determination of Cameroonians who voted for him to take their victory to the end, and at the same time, he calls on them to be peaceful. I was talking about this with Jean-Claude a moment ago, and he mentioned that the demonstrations have been peaceful all along until the government forces started using lethal force. And he was evoking the principle of proportionality. In this circumstance, can we talk about self-defense already and talking about Cameroonians exercising their right to self-defense using the principle of proportionality because government forces are reacting to peaceful demonstrations in a particular way?
I think for now we really need to appreciate the fact that things have not gone out of hand. I know they've burnt a couple of military vehicles. I don't think any military person has been killed. So far, so good. I think I'm really encouraged by the fact that the civilians are not violent, and I'm sure also that some of the militaries that tried to exercise kind of restraint, because this election also the military voted. They voted for Issa Chiruma. The polling station that I voted in Boya, where the military voted, Issa Chiruma won in that polling station. So they too are Cameroonians. They too go through the pain and suffering of the average Cameroonian. So they understand their pain. They understand their pain, and I think that's why, as we speak, the violence has not moved to a level wherein people can say, well, either the protesters are very violent or the military is extremely excessive. If we can maintain it at a level where there is no violence, or let me say not much violence, I think it will be better. So Chiruma also is trying to, he understands the climate, the international climate. He understands that there are international crimes also, not so. There are war crimes, are crimes against humanity. So everybody has to play safe. The fact that you have a legitimate cause doesn't mean in exercising that legitimate grievance, you should go across above the board. I think that's what everybody is trying to play within the lines of peaceful protest, asserting our rights, but whilst also ensuring that it should not be violent. I've seen images of Yaoundé where people are running in the streets. I'm hoping that there will be no one life too many again. We know we have passed the stage where
with your experience from Sierra Leone, I think, was it Sierra Leone and Afghanistan?
Sierra Leone, and DRC,
and DRC. When does that line? When do the government forces cross that line that would push citizens to take up arms in self-defense and claiming proportionality?
I think it's on a case-by-case basis. Okay, there's no like hard and fast rule that it's more of a kind of a threshold that will take into consideration what is actually happening on the ground within that particular context. That civilians will say, like, you know what, enough is enough. They have been killing a lot of us. We have to also protect ourselves, you know, like what happened in the Anglophone Cameroon. I believe that the military also have learned lessons with what happened in Anglophone Cameroon. I believe also that because they too are going through the pain and suffering, we will not get to that threshold, Bernard, where the civilian population will pick up arms. Because if we get there, then it becomes uncontrollable, everything becomes chaotic, and the country starts getting downhill to a level that none of us will recognize the country.
Did you follow Atanganji's press conference today?
Lived in this part of the country.
Did you follow Atanganji's press conference today?
Oh, yes, I followed it already.
Do you have the impression that he is speaking the mind of the government, or he is talking about himself and his delusions?
No, at times some overzealous people become too overzealous, and they become they believe that they speak for everybody in government. But we've seen what overzealousness did him in getting Kamto eliminated through the ELECAM on the Constitutional Council. We saw where it's led them today. So overzealousness might not help us at this moment. He's always a microphone happy kind of guy who's just, I think he speaks before he thinks, honestly. But this is not just about him. It's about a nation of 30 million people. It's about a nation suffering, young men and women crying that their voices should be heard, that their elections have been stolen. It's the pain and suffering that people are going through that we expect him to tone down his rhetoric. The time of Cartier language has passed. This is what him and others said in 2016. And we are where we are today because of some overzealous government officers and some excited people in the ruling party who felt that whatever we were saying did not matter for the sake of these 30 million Cameroonians, for the sake of what we have seen in the Southwest and the Northwest, and what we have seen in other parts of the world. He should be called to order. He should tone down his rhetoric. And I'm saying this to him directly. I mean, we've passed the time where he thinks he can bully everybody and shout. He's not the first person to be Minister of Interior in this country. We have had more responsible ministers of Interior. And in a period of conflict, your tone, the style, your mannerism also has to change, has to reflect the reality. I speak as a Cameroonian. I speak as somebody who has concern of the people of this country. No minister, no president, nobody in this country has to be condescending to Cameroonians at this particular point in time. It doesn't help the country. You might win, but the country might lose. And all of us today are speaking because we are Cameroonians. We have a vested interest, a shared interest in ensuring that this country doesn't go down the line. So if you can do whatever you can do to arrest this situation, Mr. President, This is a time when you have to speak to Cameroonians. You have to speak to Cameroonians from the heart. You have to address Cameroonians and come down from your high horse and address issues. Talk to Cameroonians. Appeal to them. And I think Mr. Chiruma Issa also has to do the same, because this country is bigger than both of them. This country is bigger than all of us on this platform. We need to also assume our responsibility to talk through to power. We might have various positions. We might not like what is happening, and I'm 100% d'accord. But let us look at what is happening to Cameroon. How do we protect the only thing that brings us, all of us together, called Cameroon? We cannot be led through the nostrils by Atanganji and his cohorts. We should not accept. And I hope that the military, I hope that the CPDM members who are watching us should not be led through the nostrils by Mr. Atanganji. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barrister. There is so much sense and emotion in what you have just said. And when you listen to what Atanganji says, it's like he's not talking to human beings. He's not talking to Cameroonians. Barrister Michel Ndoki, let me come over to you. Before the elections, you traveled throughout Cameroon. When you were traveling throughout Cameroon, did you have the impression that Cameroonians were so much attached to Issa Chiroma Bakari to the extent that they would come out on the streets to defend their victory? Unmute your mic, please.
Sorry. So I was saying that when I traveled around Cameroon, the conversation was not about a person. The conversation was about the fate of this country, the prospects that we had of changing the trajectory of the country and the role we could play in achieving that change in trajectory. So it was not about one candidate or the other. And a lot of people had very different opinions about who they would vote for. Among the Nation Builders Association, you had people from various parties, SDF, PCRN, FSNC, a lot of different parties, and of course people who were not member of any party. And we were happy to work together on this project of protecting our vote and protecting our voice, no matter where we were coming from, because this was important. We had that in common, that it was important for us. And then there was this campaign from Issa Chiroma Bakari. And I'm sure you realize, as we all know, that it didn't start that well. First interview I remember he granted was actually not his best, not at all. I remember the young man who was interviewing him, a blogger, asking him, why should we trust you at this point in time, knowing where you're coming from? And he repeated the same question 3 or 4 times. And Issa Chiroma Bakari could not answer the question until he asked him to stop. This is where he started. And then he changed the perception that Cameroonian had of him.
So what is that thing that is actually pushing Cameroonians at this point to say we must get down to the streets to defend it? Is it because Chiroma said it, or if anybody said it, they'll just go down to the streets?
No, actually not at all. It is not about Issa Chiroma Bakari. That is what I'm saying, actually. If you see the performance of PCRN, if you see the performance of the SDF candidate and the other candidates, you see the change. I'm sure that militants, active militants of SDF, of PCRN, of other parties, of UNDP, voted Issa Chiroma Bakari instead of the president of their own party. I am sure. But This is because it was not about the individual. It was about us. Since they would not agree on one candidate, it was about us choosing one person and making sure that the person that we would have chosen would go fight for that change until the end. So Cameroonians compared all of them and said, this is the person I will bet on who can fight this till the very end. And so far, he has not disappointed. He made a very inspiring campaign, but more importantly, he is holding up his part of the bargain. We did our part. He's doing his job. And it's
So
not about...
how far do you think he can go?
I think he can go as far as being sworn in November as the president of this country.
How is that going to happen?
This is going to happen because this regime, the few number of people that are in various seats today, will realize that actually there are a few number, and the sovereign in this country is still the people. So we will make sure that they understand the message, that they don't own us and they don't own our country. We own them. We pay them. We pay for their kids' school fees. We pay what the clothes that they wear. We pay the AC that they use. We own them. It's not the other way around. And we will make that message across until they do understand. Because it's the reality. I mean, people died to make this country a republic. So we are not.
I will come back to you
now.
Yeah, I will come back to you to discuss on what is going to motivate Cameroonians who are already on the streets, because it seems as if it's only the streets that can help change the situation or can help the government respect the constitution or the results from the ballot box. As Issa Chiruma said, though he said with our neighbors in 2010, they finally respected the law. I think that's what he said. Our neighbors in 2010, they finally respected the law. And I think it's talking about Côte d'Ivoire, one of the countries where you have lived. But I'll come back to you in a moment. Let me talk with Jean-Claude. Yeah, Jean-Claude, we're talking about statements by the different international organizations, and I'm just seeing now that the African Union has put up a statement, and that statement from the African Union congratulates Paul Biya as the newly elected president of Cameroon for his 8th mandate. So the statement says the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Mr. Mahamadou Ali Yusuf, notes the proclamation of the results by the Constitutional Council of the Republic of Cameroon on the final results of the presidential election of 12 October 2025. To this effect, the chairperson extends congratulations to His Excellency Paul Biya on his victory as the re-elected president of the Republic of Cameroon. However, the chairperson is gravely concerned about the reported violence, repression, and arrest of protesters and political actors in connection with the election results. The African Union Commission chairperson calls on all institutional and political actors to exercise restraint and work towards the preservation of social cohesion, peace, and stability in Cameroon. He urges the Cameroonian authorities to accord topmost priority to inclusive national dialogue and consultation with all political stakeholders in order to reach consensus in the spirit of national unity, peace, and collective security. The African Union chairperson reaffirms the African Union's commitment to continue to support the people of Cameroon in the quest to consolidate democracy, social justice, and the rule of law. So that is it. But in his statement, Issa Chiruma said Cameroonians are not going to beg anybody to ensure that the results are respected. So from all the statements that we've read today, one thing comes across. They are calling on the government of Cameroon to respect fundamental rights, to respect freedoms, and to ensure that there is dialogue to resolve the problems. But one thing I have not read from these statements is that the riots and the demonstrations are because Cameroonians believe that their votes were not respected, that the elections were rigged. Why do you think this cause is always taken out of these statements? Why don't they put the cause as part of the statements? Because the human rights violations are an effect of that cause. Why do they keep taking the cause out?
I think for me, first of all, there is no surprise, regarding the statement from the African Union. I didn't read it yet, but of course, I thank you for stating it here for everyone. And, the African Union used to be seen as a union of head of state. So it's something like their brotherhood union. And so I don't think we could have expected more than what they just wrote. And but that said, if there is no surprise about the African Union, I think we got a lot of surprise in the statements by the European Union, as well as the United Nations and other international organizations like Amnesty International. Pourquoi je le dis? Je le dis parce que les Nations Unies et l'Union européenne, they went straight forward et ils ont tout de suite attaqué le problème qu'il y a dans leur première phrase. Ils ont commencé par leurs préoccupations, alors que l'Union africaine est en train en tant que syndicat des chefs d'État, effectivement, ils ont d'abord un tout petit peu flatté avec des thèmes diplomatiques. Leur communiqué, malheureusement, à l'Union africaine, quand ça regarde l'Afrique, c'est toujours écrit comme une note verbale diplomatique où on fait d'abord les compliments à son interlocuteur avant de lui dire les vérités. Et c'est à ce niveau-là qu'on ne peut pas sous-estimer tout ce qui a été dit, parce que quand vous voyez tous les autres paragraphes qui arrivent, ce sont les mêmes qui ont été repris par la communauté internationale aujourd'hui. Je dis ce que j'ai déjà dit et je vais le répéter parce que je crois que la répétition est la mère des enseignements. C'est que la communauté internationale à ce stade ne peut pas courir le risque de prendre une position mordicus, de prendre une position toute tranchée, parce qu'il est en train de se passer des choses. Il va se passer des choses encore. N'oubliez pas que la semaine dernière, il y a eu une tentative de négociation sous l'égide de la communauté internationale pour faire fléchir le régime sortant à Yaoundé et leur faire admettre qu'ils ont perdu les élections et qu'il fallait qu'ils s'en aillent, et que pendant cette négociation, ils ont plutôt décidé de passer par l'arrogance, la corruption, d'essayer de dire plutôt qu'il fallait qu'ils proposent un poste de Premier ministre au président élu Issa Chiroma. Donc, c'est à ce niveau-là qu'il faut voir. Alors, la communauté internationale, avant de faire ses sorties, a essayé par tous les moyens de mener ce dialogue qui a échoué. Et quand vous voyez, c'est la première fois qu'au Cameroun, je crois depuis 1992, c'est la première fois que vous voyez toute la communauté internationale unanime pour ne pas dire, parce que quand vous voyez leur communiqué, il n'y avait aucune flatterie, même pas les usages diplomatiques à l'endroit du gouvernement. Je veux dire que 98% des communiqués de l'Union africaine, des Nations Unies et de l'Union européenne sont un tout petit peu des injonctions au gouvernement pour qu'il mène des enquêtes approfondies par rapport à ce qui a déjà été fait. Pour ce qui est du vote, exactement, ce n'est pas eux de le faire, et je crois que si nous nous retrouvons avec, et c'est d'ailleurs le reproche qu'on fait que tous les Africains font au Camerounais, c'est qu'ils n'arrivent pas, malgré la très forte adhésion et unité qui est renvoyée en image, hein, cette fois-ci, il y a quand même ce reproche qui est fait aux Camerounais, au peuple camerounais, de la part des peuples africains qui disent, mais pourquoi est-ce que vous ne pouvez pas sortir comme au Burkina Faso, comme au Sénégal, parce qu'avec 1 million de personnes, ce régime tombe et personne ne va le regretter. Lorsque vous voyez comment ça se passe aujourd'hui, je crois qu'en dehors du Gabon, de la République centrafricaine, de l'Union africaine, c'est tout. Les pays africains ne se sont pas empressés de féliciter parce que c'est une question morale où on a déjà en Afrique des démocraties émergentes qui sont en train de prêcher par l'exemple. On a le Bénin, dont le président vient de dire qu'il ne va pas rester là. Nous avons le Sénégal qui nous parle. Nous avons les jeunes, la jeunesse des pays de l'AES qui ont pris leurs responsabilités et aujourd'hui, ils ne comprennent pas que le Cameroun, et d'ailleurs, il y a des amis ghanéens et kenyans, j'ai vu qu'ils m'ont tagué sur plein de choses aujourd'hui pour me demander qu'est-ce qui se passe au Cameroun. Est-ce que le peuple camerounais n'est pas capable de se lever une fois, en une journée, et mettre un terme à ce régime? Donc, je crois que c'est à ça que peut-être les mobilisations vont se malheureusement, et je crois que quelqu'un l'a relevé ici, il ne s'agit pas, ce que nous voyons aujourd'hui, de mobilisation concertées. Elles n'ont pas été organisées. Le président Issa Chiroma n'a eu ni les moyens, ni le temps matériel pour procéder à l'organisation logistique des manifestations d'une telle ampleur. Donc, il s'agit de mouvements spontanés de Camerounais qui expriment leur ras-le-bol parce que, comme la plupart, ça revient de temps en temps, la manifestation actuelle va au-delà de la personne du président élu, Issa Chiroma. Il s'agit de la manifestation viscérale du peuple camerounais debout pour réclamer le changement.
Merci JC. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. If you are just joining us now, you are watching this episode of Updates on the Road to a 2D from the Beyond Africa podcast, Mimi Mefo Infos, and the CNN News Agency. And we're analyzing updates from Cameroon and what the stakes are, what the stakes are going to be, especially as the Minister of Communications came out today and issued stern warnings, while international human rights organizations are warning against human rights violations. And the diplomatic community is also issuing statements calling for the respect of human rights. Please follow us on all these pages, like the video, subscribe, leave comments, because that is one of the best ways you are helping us to spread the word. You know, back at home, it's difficult for journalists or TV stations to carry out information the way we carry it here because they could be stricken off the media space or they could be suspended. But we give it to you as raw and as important as it is. Barrister Felix Nkongo, I want to come back to you. The question I put to Jean-Claude. I'm not sure if you have already seen the press release by the chairperson of the African Commission, in which he congratulates Paul Biya, but then he calls on the respect of human rights, no violence, and national dialogue to resolve the issues. The question I put to Jean-Claude was, in this context, the international community has always called on the respect of human rights. But as you mentioned a few moments ago, Cameroonians who are calling for no violence and peace have completely forgotten that there is a cause to the threat to peace and the threat to violence, which is the election rigging. Why does the international community do the same? Because from all the press releases we have read today, they don't mention the cause. They go straight to the consequences, and the consequences now appear to be the cause. So the government may then forget about the rigged elections and they are focusing on the human rights violations. Doesn't that serve the interest of rigging elections?
Well, you know, human rights exist in peacetime and in wartime. So no matter what is going on, human rights must be respected. Oftentimes also, these international communities try to respect the territorial integrity and sovereignty of states. They look at elections to be very internal matters, and it's only when it spiral out to what is happening that they interfere or they intervene or they try to issue a statement. So for now, for the time being, their focus is on human rights, because I think also when you are drafting these statements, Bernard, especially you take the EU or you take the AU, for example, you have a lot of states competing interests, not so. So you need to use language that would be accommodated or accommodate all of them. You understand? And the easiest aspect to work on would be human rights, where all the nations in the EU would agree that, or EU would agree that we don't encourage or we don't want this to morph into gross or systematic human rights violations. So that's the easiest thing. But that's the first, because also they go in stages. So they issue this first statement, they see how it goes. If the violation continues, they might now try to send a delegation, try to talk to the parties. Then we get to sanction. You understand? So it's a process. You don't just leave stage 1 and get to stage 5. Not so. So it's a process. Read this document today. Let's wait again. If things morph to something different, you would read another document. You would see the tone of the communique, and you will start understanding that, okay, fine, this was just the first document, and things might get worse in terms of their tone, in terms of their messaging. I personally think that also is a slow process. Let's be honest, it's a slow process. And because these institutions also, these organizations are made up of member states. And these member states also will not want interference in their kind of what they consider personal affairs. You understand? So, I mean, take the AU in particular. This is a club of leaders who mostly violate their people's rights, who oftentimes rig elections. So they would also want to come up with a statement. When you are issuing that statement, you are looking at your country also. My own election is coming. I don't want people to use very, 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 very strong language. So everybody, it's a club where they eat human beings, okay? So you want to protect the other partner eating another human being because you know that you eat another human being. That's the unfortunate thing about this international politics also. What is happening in the country would determine their reaction and the response also.
Yeah, you're just saying that what is happening in the country would determine the reaction. And you also say that the evolution of the post-electoral situation is going to determine how the language changes on this press release.
Yes, that's why I say what happens in the country as the situation increases, the language will change also. Okay?
As what situation increases?
The situation of the protests. The more people are killed, the longer the protest goes, whether you like it or not, the longer the protest goes, it affects their economic interests also. Their language also changes. Okay, which is unfortunate. And I don't want to say the number of people who are killed, because don't forget also they look at reactions from their country, from their capital. By the time their people in their country start saying, no, enough is enough, this is one killing too many, the Cameroonians in the diaspora in these other countries also start talking to their elected officers who are there, like, you know what, no, you have to make a statement. My country that I come from originally, where my parents come from, they are killing our people, they are doing this. The parliamentarians or the senators now start talking to whether it's a prime minister or the president. It changes a lot. So the diaspora also has a role now to play. You know, just like Jean-Claude was saying, that the kind of things that they were documenting to make sure that they get the US president's attention, it means a lot. It changes the whole dynamics also. It is different when we sit here and we say these things, but when the diasporans who have a right to vote in those countries. So the parliamentarian, let me take a country like Belgium that I know much. Let's take Brussels. You know, so if I live in the community of Molenbeek and where I'm voting there, and I meet my councillor, I meet my parliamentarian, and I tell him that the country where my parents come from, you know, they're killing my brothers and sisters, and because I vote And he knows that I'm part of his electorate. He listens to me, not so. When 50 to 30 other potential voters tell him that, he has to take it to the next level. And that's how also it generates attention. Some would go through, if you are in school, you talk to your friends in school, in college, and then you start mobilizing young people in college to start writing letters to their elected officers, to start talking about the situation in Cameroon, to start tweeting about the situation happening in Cameroon. That's the kind of way that it changes the mindset of these leaders also, and they start taking further action. So it would be a very holistic approach. While those in Cameroon would do what they are supposed to do, the diaspora also would have to do a lot just beyond what they are doing. I know they are doing a lot. They would have to also make sure that they get lobbyists in Brussels, in Paris, in Washington. These lobbyists who can get into some places that others cannot get, to start, talking about this issue, so that those who are the power brokers, those who have the powers in their hands, will be able to take action. So it's a lot of work that has to be done. But the passion, the commitment of Cameroonians in and out of the country, this thing is doable. It also means that trying to create a fund that would defend those who are currently arrested, meaning that the lawyers, I saw Barrister Sim and Melly in a group that I am, they have met some of the leaders, and they need to start thinking, how are they going to take care of their transportation, their telephone credit for the work that they are doing. They are not paying them per se, but no amount of Holy Mary will build the church, not so. But they'll be able to have some stipend to run around, and to make sure when you start doing that, those who have been arrested, they realize that they have not been abandoned. Those who are protesting know that there's a legal trust fund on their behalf for them to be provided support. So when there is this connect and not a disconnect, it is added impetus. So there's a whole lot of organization, a background team, and ideally this background team has to exist in the diaspora, that does this kind of work to give the visibility that everybody expects, and hopefully people will triumph at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm going to come to Boris Sandoki in a moment, but I want to narrow this down with you a little bit based on your experience, because it's only 9 years ago when you and Chiruma, you were on the opposite sides of the aisles, and you were not seeing eye to eye. You must have been involved with such negotiations, and now you are supporting Chiruma. Have you had the opportunity to discuss such strategies with him? It is strategy, I know it must not be spoken on TV, but have you had such conversations with him?
Me?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, well, I think the Saturday before the elections, before we left Garoua with others, we had a kind of in-depth discussions of possibility if this happens, if this happens, if this happens, if this happens. So there's a lot of thoughting process of what could happen, you understand? And I think a lot of the things were falling in place. The only strangest thing is that as of now, it's not been arrested, But when you are looking at the scenario, you play in like whatever happens, who does this, who picks, And I think that some of the people who they knew, they thought that were very instrumental or influential, they already make sure that they pick them already, without even having they were no more interested in evidence. They were just trying to. But I think also is that this is also people driven, and that's the thing. It's more people driven. And how many people can you lock up? You don't have a jail to lock up the Cameroonians who voted for Chiruma. And you see, Bernard, let me just go back. I'll come back. Let's assume for academic purposes, 34% for somebody who 5 months ago wasn't in the mindset of anybody. You gave him 34. Is somebody that you don't take for granted also. Okay? It means that it's somebody that you pick the phone and call and show him some respect and not bully the person. On the other side, I think there are strategies also behind. Issa Chiruma has a strong team that is working. The team might even be more knowledgeable than us, providing him this kind of advice. And I'm sure the team also is following this program to pick on some of the things that that we are saying, so that they can build a more robust background team, strategic team that would help him in this long drawn battle, because I think that we are in for a long process, but
Absolutely.
Let's hope that God would be on the side of the people of Cameroon. God would be on the side of Cameroon, and Cameroon 237 would come out victorious, because the most important thing in whatever we are saying is 237. And when 237 wins, all of us would win. Bernard, Mimi, Michelle, and everybody in this country, everybody who is Cameroonian in and out would be happy that 237 won.
All right. Thank you so much. Melton Doki, I was going to come to you to ask about what is going to keep Cameroonians going on the streets, because the game here is always for the government to pull it long for a long time, so that Cameroonians get tired and go back to their normal activities, because people get hungry and they need to pay their bills. So when you talk to Cameroonians across the country, what is going to keep them going on until there is change?
I think what is needed for them is support in terms of organizing it. This is a mass movement. This is a popular movement. You have to give it a structure, not appoint a president and the vice president, etc. Not at all. But you have to give it a structure. You have to give it a direction. You have to create a momentum around a very specific demand. Now, people are expressing frustration because their votes were stolen. Okay, but that needs to become a demand. What are they demanding, and from whom? So that is one thing that is needed for us to sustain this protest movement, this standing for what they believe is right that has started. The second thing is the need to be informed on a regular basis about the progress. So what we're doing tonight, analyzing the messages from EU, from this organization, the other, this analysis has to be broken down into simple messages explaining to those our young fellow Cameroonians that we are actually getting somewhere. Okay, the regime has not backed down already, but we are making progress and we are heading into the right direction. So it needs to move from the space of spontaneous expression of frustration and discontent and willing to be heard. Move from there to, okay, we are now an organized mass movement, and this is what we demand. And this is the reason why this is our measure for success. Okay. So, and we keep on walking because we see that we are making progress, and this is the progress, and this is the progress that we're making. So what we are doing now, talking to Cameroonians and with Cameroonians across the board is really important. I can't thank you and Mimi enough for that. We need to bring that back home and bring that back to the guys who are fighting for our freedom, and help them understand how to make this an efficient movement. This would be my perspective on that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Merton Doki. Let me bring all of you on stage so that we can have our last round of inputs. And the last round of inputs, I would like you all to choose one stakeholder of two. The first stakeholder are the protesters who are on the streets. You can choose either them or you can choose Chiruma, and you give a message to them. So you choose one, and that is going to be your last take on the conversation tonight. So let's start with Jean-Claude. So you choose either the protesters or you choose Chiruma, and you give a message to them. Unmute your mic, please.
Yes, my microphone. No, I don't think to have a message for even both, for President Chiroma or for those young people who are demonstrating. All what I can say is, according even to the information I have, you know, and Barrister Ndoki was talking about, you know, to bring the manifestation out of their spontaneous status and make it an organized thing. I think it's what is going to succeed in the coming days, according to what I know, even because I read somewhere in a group somewhere that people are organizing themselves, and even they sent a clear message to the armed forces, asking them to join the people, or the people will be receiving, you know, some material for their self-defense. So as I told you yesterday, we are not even at the starting point of where we are now. Donc, juste pour le dire comme ça, parce que rien n'a commencé et rien n'est fini. Tel que les choses sont en train. Je crois que tout est dans le regard du président Issa Chiroma. Vous avez vu, il y a eu une vidéo qu'il a montrée pendant qu'il n'était pas apeuré du tout, pendant qu'on disait qu'il y avait des snipers sur une toiture en face de sa maison et qu'il était sorti de sa maison à lui pour aller s'enquérir de la situation des jeunes qui constituent le bouclier de protection devant sa propre maison. Et l'assurance qu'il a dégagée, je crois, qu'a redonné un peu de tonus à tout le monde. Ce que je peux dire, c'est que ce sont des événements qui vont se poursuivre, parce que quand vous voyez ce qui s'est passé aujourd'hui, à Yaoundé, il y a des quartiers qui étaient tabous, on ne savait pas qu'on pouvait avoir un peu du désordre, comme a été dit. Il y en a eu aujourd'hui, on a même entendu des coups de feu. C'est parce que les Camerounais ont compris et ils lisent les Camerounais. Ils vivent. Ceux qui s'amusent à passer des messages de manière banale sur les réseaux sociaux, ils ne se rendent pas compte que les Camerounais les lisent, et les Camerounais, je crois qu'ils sont en train de leur donner des réponses. Pourquoi je le dis? Je le dis parce qu'on a souvent eu l'impression que, premièrement, les habitants de Yaoundé, les jeunes du RDPC, je préfère dire comme ça, les jeunes RDPCistes ont fini par faire croire que la capitale étant à Yaoundé, Yaoundé appartenait à une certaine communauté. Et ça, c'est ce que les Camerounais veulent effacer. La deuxième chose est que les mêmes personnes, dans leur arrogance, vous avez vu ce qui se passait hier, avaient l'habitude de dire jusqu'à la semaine dernière, cassez à Garoua, cassez à Bafoussam, cassez à Douala, mais ne venez pas chez nous tant que ce n'est pas à Yaoundé. Donc je crois que les jeunes qui sont en train de manifester tiennent absolument à casser ce tabou-là psychologique, et je crois que cela a été touché aujourd'hui, ça a été atteint. Ils sont en train de montrer qu'effectivement, quand Yaoundé est attaqué, les choses vont bouger. Et aujourd'hui, j'ai vu quelqu'un qui leur a dit, vous voyez, aujourd'hui, on n'a fait que des cailloux dans la ville de Yaoundé. Vous êtes en train de trembler, tout le monde est enfermé dans sa maison, les enfants ne vont plus à l'école. Et si une arme devait éclater ici comme ailleurs, comme vous l'avez fait à Garoua ou dans les régions du nord-ouest et du sud-ouest. Donc, quelque chose est en train de passer et je crois que l'objectif, c'est effectivement que même les habitants de Yaoundé se rendent compte que le combat qui est en train d'être mené aujourd'hui, ce n'est pas un combat contre une ethnie, une tribu, c'est un combat pour le changement, pour le bien-être de tous les Camerounais, y compris ceux qui pensent que, à force d'avoir eu un petit concours d'entrée à l'Enjeh à travers une élite du village, on doit absolument défendre le régime et chanter les louanges et boire à la gloire d'un homme âgé de 93 ans qui a déjà passé 43 ans au pouvoir et que son entourage est en train de pousser à massacrer des jeunes de 19 ans.
Thank you, Jean-Claude. Your message is quite broad and a message of caution, advising that the protest might have not even started, because you've heard people talking about different issues that may aggravate the situation. Barrister Nkongo Agbo, to whom are you going to address a final word?
I would address two persons. I would wish Mr. Issa Chiroma does another address, thanking the protesters, thanking Cameroonians for rising up to protect their vote, but equally calling them again in a very strong language to ensure that they respect public and private property. That should not be the focus of the protest. I would equally call on President Biya to talk to Cameroonians, to address Cameroonians from his heart, to acknowledge the pain and suffering, to be very conciliatory, and have a telephone call to Mr. Issa Chiroma. And this is not through the DCC or anybody. Call him. Let them have a conversation. I don't know what, I'm not proposing anything with regards to the content of their discussion. But I think also that it's a hallmark of statesman or statesmen that when the country is getting into a very critical situation, they should be able to talk. And this is not talking to third parties. This is not somebody feeling that I am too big to call the other person. It is on him to pick up his phone and call Mr. Issa Chiroma. And I think that if he calls Issa Chiroma will pick up the call and they would have a proper conversation. That would be my advice to him. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. Matt Ndoki.
I want to talk to my fellow compatriots, those I call in French les enfants de ma terre. I want to tell them how proud they are making me feel, really. That's a journey. Twin Long, you will know, that's a journey that we started a long time ago. If you look back, we've given it a lot, really. I'm getting emotional about it. I can't tell you enough how proud I am to see that we've regained the respect in the eyes of the broader African community. I was sick of and tired of having people telling me that Cameroonians are selfish, that Cameroonians just love their beer, that Cameroonians are corrupted, that Cameroonian will never stand against an old man who's almost the age of being mummified. I think, and that's what I said when this whole protect your vote thing on the 12th of October started. I think now we've gained the self-respect and the self-esteem that this regime has taken away from us for so long now. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. I think it will be a shame that we destroy all of that because we are overwhelmed by the anger. So then don't let the anger guide your actions. But keep up the struggle. This year is the year we are getting rid of those people. Thank you.
And Bernard, let me just say something. When Michelle talks about twin long, she refers to me. That's how we describe each other. And like someone who has been on the front line, I'm telling you, when you are leading that protest, you don't care. You don't think about what is going to happen. And I think that's what some of them underestimate the power. I remember when I left my house on that fateful day to go out to lead the lawyers' protest, when we had done Bamenda and we had come to Boya to lead the protest. You don't care. I didn't talk to any family member. I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want anybody to discourage me. When they stopped us from Boya, I'll tell you a story. When they stopped us from Boya to protest, and we were taking the road to a Tabi Song's house to go to Muya, one of my lawyer friend in Douala called me. He said, "Barrister, where are you?" I said, "I'm home." He said, "Because they believe that I don't see without my glasses." That one of his friends, who is a commissioner, had told him that they would take off my glasses and they know I will not see, and then they will deal with me. At that time, I was on my way to Munya for the March pass. But if I told him, he would discourage me, and then he would feel bad if something happened that he told me I did not. I just told him that I'm in the house. I was on my way. They blocked Munya, and we went to Moyoka and we marched. So when he saw it, he was like, "Bala," I said, "Yeah, when you called me, I was going." That's what matters. That's what matters. And you, at times, people underestimate the power, the feeling that you have in you, and your determination to right the wrongs.
Yes.
Let them not take it for granted. It takes a lot. It takes a lot for them to be out on the street, putting their life and limbs at they're doing it for a higher cause. They're doing it for this country.
Yes.
And we say thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. Dear viewers, this panel was not only rich in intellectual prowess, they are rich in organizing. You all remember Agbobala led the lawyers and teachers demonstrations. He was arrested and sent to Condemn and charged with terrorism for a long time. Barrister Michelle Ndoki herself, talking here with a lot of emotions, she was shot and taken to Condemn. Jean-Claude Bede himself here, he has been tortured in Cameroon and has been living in exile, a renowned journalist for a very long time. So putting together a panel like this is not because we are putting together people who don't know what to say or people whom you think from other stories that they have been corrupted or whatsoever. The important thing here is to remember that we have a country to save, and to save that country, we must serve the country. And I just have a certain place in my heart where I respect people who have served, especially prison, for political purposes because they were advocating for rights. Most people don't know me, just getting to see me now. I'm a human rights specialist, so I know what human rights are and I know what human rights advocates have done and what they have faced. So these three people sitting here and talking to you today, if they're encouraging Cameroonians to ensure that their rights are respected, to fight for their rights, they're not talking from space, or they're not social media warriors, they're not TV warriors. They are actors on the ground and they have faced it. So with that, I send you all back home, sleep, rest, come back tomorrow for another conversation. We'll have people who are going to share their stories with us, encouraging us to remember that rights, fundamental rights, are sacred. They are human. They are universal. They are yours. Nobody should take them away from you. Even if they bully you and threaten you, react the way you are going to react. Nobody's telling you how to react. Use your best judgment to react. Nobody's sending you to the streets. Nobody's sending you back home. But use your best judgment to react and do all your reactions, remembering that they must be within the law. Violate no law. Remain peaceful. Remain reasonable. And you would achieve what you want to achieve. With that, see you with our panel of interviewers and guests tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.